Australia win by 2 wickets at Edgbaston, an all-timer of a test. For once in a close Ashes test in England, it's Australia who prevail. We'll reserve our more sombre England post-mortem style analysis for tomorrow's weekly show. But first off, Mel, what a game from literally ball one. That was incredible, exhausting even. Two teams that just never really let the other one out of sight for all 5 days.
I'm done. I'm done. It's stupid, this game of test cricket. What other sport can you be just shredded over 5 days? And that's how I feel. It's just from the very first ball. And then you go to yesterday when, Joe Root, very first ball, just all the way along. Honestly, it was absolutely brilliant. I was thinking back to Headingley, which was the greatest day I've ever experienced in covering test cricket. I've never experienced a day like that. But that, when you look back at it, it was a brilliant last day to a fine test. It wasn't like the whole test. Whereas this, it just felt like the whole test was so evenly poised at any one time, and it was so hard to read it at any one time. And I'm just gone. I'm probably going to be rubbish on this podcast because I'm not sure I can even speak. But it just was absolutely brilliant. Brilliant from both teams. They both deserve so much credit for giving us such amazing entertainment. And
I think so much richer for the contrasting styles. That was so much in the build-up, but even on the final day, like that first hour, there were 21 runs. Before Driggs yesterday, England scored 93 runs. The game basically moved as slowly in that first hour today as it was when the covers were on this morning. It wasn't going anywhere. Cat and mouse throughout days 4 and 5. And I was so impressed with how Australia kind of just thought, no, we're just going to hang in there. We're just going to hang in there. And then kind of see what happens in the end. And England tried to do progressively funkier and funkier things. And they're still pretty rigid in how they're going about things. And I thought Khawaja, a couple of superstars for Australia. Khawaja, I know that he wasn't there at the end, but just an astonishing test match for a guy who hadn't got a big score in England before. And then Pat Cummins, listening to him talk at the end, it feels like this is a personal mission of his for Australia to win here in England. And he's going to be the man that drives that mission.
Yeah, the contrasting styles, I do think, well, and this is a great thing. We talked about the contrasting styles so much leading into this. And I had this bit of a fear coming into this test. I thought, God, what if the first test is actually a bit of a dud, and we've built it up. And I'm actually just so happy that what we've ended up with, these two styles, it's as fascinating as we thought and hoped it would be. Probably even more so, actually. And because I think, there was a bit of a feeling, the way the South Africa series or whatever, that England could go boom or bust. And maybe that would be that sort of test where it went that way. But this wasn't. This was a far different test match to certainly any of the ones that I watched last summer over here. So that, for me, first and foremost, was really important for the series, that there is a genuine contest between these two ideas. And it's great because, there is more than one way to do it. And what we've got is two contrasting styles that make for brilliantly entertaining cricket. And I hope there's not, I sound like, I'm going to sound like a disciple of Bazball or whatever, but I just hope people don't turn on it, I guess. I hope people don't get too bogged down in the first innings declaration. If they hadn't declared at that point in time, who knows what might have happened? They might have lost by more. We might have meandered to a draw. So there's sliding door moments, I guess.
There's so many of those moments across all 5 days. And I kind of think that I'm pretty optimistic about England after that test match, actually almost more optimistic.
That's not like you. You're such a pessimistic
not all the time. But I think if compared to how I felt before day one, I think England will feel that they lost that test match, not because they had style of cricket. They lost that test match mainly because of unforced errors that had nothing to do with their style of cricket. You can maybe argue that the selection of Johnny Bairstow is their style of cricket, but the missed chances from him, and also the no ball when Broad got Khawaja with the second ball of the second new ball in Australia's first innings, and then 20 runs in no balls across the test match, maybe even more. That's so pivotal at the end. And you're right to say the declaration, sure, they left runs out there, but also it allowed time in the game that wouldn't have engineered that finish at the end. We bumped into each other just before Carey got out, I think, and England were probably still favourites then, and especially more so when Root got Carey, reward for plugging away when Moeen wasn't really able to bowl. When did you sense that Australia might actually be favourites in that final hour?
Oh, I think I tweeted it out. I actually felt probably around the time when they were like 110 runs, and I know that was a long time before, and logic would tell you that England was still favourites, but I just thought, look, I just felt like they were edging their way, and if they had wickets in hand, that they would go for it. Pat Cummins, I mean, there's this lovely symmetry there. You know, he hit a boundary to win his first ever test match before he was injured for 6 years and didn't play his second until 6 years later. So essentially a series of injuries. So, you know, he was touted as an all-rounder. And so I kind of felt too, while ever he was around, you talk about symmetry, it was almost like the flip side of Headingley, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
The captain batting with the tail and the spinner to basically get the game home. So
Cummins and Lyon at the centre of it as well.
Exactly. There was so many things, many echoes of the past of going through that. So that for me was quite interesting. But they will feel that this is. They'll feel a couple of things. They'll feel it was, yes, we've got the game plan to counter what England do. But I do think they also know that they're in a fight, and there'll be things that probably have taken them by surprise as well. There are a couple of their bowlers who perhaps went for more runs than they thought might have. There'll be things that they'll look at as well.
Something that we've not actually touched upon at all over the last 4 days that definitely deserves mention is the pitch. Unusually slow pitch, and actually take a step back. Almost incredible to get a test match like that on a pitch like that. I think normally if you go back 5-10 years to normal test sides are probably playing out a pretty boring draw. A lot of England fans might be tearing their hairs out looking at England's fields at the end. Why are they still bowling Root with the old ball? Why do they take the new ball and not have any slips or only have one slip? Stokes said at the end of the game, it's the pitch really. Normally you take the new ball, even Stokes said it himself, he would have had 3 slips normally, but there's no pace in that pitch, and it didn't in the end detract from the spectacle. But I think both teams particularly England, deserve a lot of credit for making it a spectacle with that surface. Yeah,
and I think as England fans, if they look at criticising things that they did, it's probably important to remember that because, well, they did move the game along with that declaration, and also the fact that they batted aggressively ended up getting bowled out. But the fact that they did so it was partly because of that, because they almost had to if they were going to actually go for the win and be as aggressive as they had set their stall out to be. So, yeah, I still objectively don't think it was a great pitch. And I noticed people will then say, "Oh, but we've got a test." And I saw this on Twitter, people saying, "Oh, test comes down to the last day, blah blah blah. Where's everyone moaning about the pitch now?" Well, no, basically, the players did an incredible job to put on the test that they did on that pitch because it was slow. And, they kept coming in here and saying, yes, there's really not much in it.
And people from both press packs were saying it from day one. People from both teams were saying it from early on. So I don't think this is people being wise off the event. It was very much, this was a trend throughout the whole game. The pitch was very slow.
Absolutely.
Well, Mel, thanks for your time. We'll be back in your feeds on Wednesday afternoon to dissect everything we saw over the whole 5-day test and to preview the women's test at Trent Bridge that starts on Thursday.